All right, everyone. I'm going to just repeat some of the pieces I shared earlier. My name is Mildred Lewis, and I'm the Dean of Enrollment Services at Laney College. I've been here for this year 22 years and a dean for 9 years. Today's presentation is Where Are the Students? The Case for Reinventing the Community College. I'm going to share my screen now, and the PowerPoint will be available to the conference leaders. They have it, and I believe they'll be sharing it with everyone. So here we go. Share screen. All right. So let me give a little bit background before I go further. The normal way that I work with colleagues, because I was former classified before I moved up to become an administrator 9 years ago. So part of my natural inclination between the way I was raised and as classified is I work with a team of scholars all the time. So even if I have an idea or go to a conference or some type of professional development, I come back and I share broadly with the campus, my fellow administrators, and with my classified staff. And so when I was putting this together, I brought in collaboration, the folks you see on this email, on this PowerPoint, which is Charles Matford, Dr. Joseph Karoma, Dr. David Lee, Jennifer Ma, William Ochoa, Atia Rashada, and Cassandra Upshaw. I work with all of these scholars in my division, which is the Division of Enrollment Services. So the inspiration for the presentation, in May of 2021, I did some professional development remotely like all of us were when we were doing PD during the pandemic. And it was a presentation by the Harvard Extension School of Professional Development. And it was just a 2-hour training, and the title was called Leading the Way Back from Crisis. And one of the powerful things that I learned in 2 hours was that any business operating the way it did pre-pandemic in the post-pandemic environment would fail because the customer has changed psychologically due to the COVID-19 contagion. 2 things happened for me at that time. They gave us an article. And so anytime I share information, it's really important for me to cite my sources. So if you want to learn more about what exactly Harvard was talking about as far as the contagion and psychological changes, they put them in 3 different categories. So there's some ways in which the community or the public would not change. There's going to be some moderate changes, and there's going to be some changes in their behavior that are 180 degrees different. During that presentation, I was the only one in education, regardless of any sector of education that was there. Most of the attendees or participants were big business. However, in one of my breakout groups, there was someone from the military, a high-ranking official from the military, and we kind of smiled because when we were in the breakout room together with the Fortune 500 leaders, because the Fortune 500 leaders, they could change a little bit more quickly. And within institutions like anything that's bureaucracy, whether it's education or even in the military, you can have an idea as a leader, but you really have to get the buy-in of the other leaders as well as the team to make changes. So I'll move on. The outline, the intention of this presentation when I completed it, it was really more related to Laney College, but the goal here from while I'm sharing it is that this is something that anyone can use at their institution. You can take this information, calibrate it, and share it with, if you're an administrator, with other administrators, or if you're classified, you share it with your boss, and then hopefully you can co-create some ways of thinking the way we do education since enrollment has declined so much. So the intention, present abbreviated topics for collaboration to reinvent the community college and improve enrollment management. So the outline, where are the students? Let's explore the data. Abbreviated topics for discussion and consideration. So here's college enrollment. The national college enrollment. Overall, I'm going to move this up because I can't see all of my slides.
Just getting out.
College enrollment fell to the lowest level since 2007, and most of the decline took.
They said that COVID did it, and I told your president, I said the enrollment here has been in trouble way before COVID.
Yeah,
So don't blame COVID. I said COVID just
because when I
Mute, but I muted. And clearly this is a hot topic. So college enrollment fell to the lowest level since 2007. And I'm talking particularly, now this is college enrollment, the broader landscape. Since 2007, most of the decline took place in two-year colleges, which had their lowest enrollment levels in 20 years. Amongst college students in 2020, 53% of them were non-Hispanic white, 20% of them were Hispanic or Latinx, Latin, 15% were Black, and 10% were Asian. Here's the census data that you'll have. Now, this is the information specifically for Laney College. I want you to see the numbers. Laney College head count, there was a 24 decrease of unduplicated students from fall 2016 to 2021. The most abrupt decrease of 22% occurred between fall 2019 to fall 2021. And so the piece here is that, yes, the pandemic saw declines in enrollment at our college, but we had already been on a steady decline. And if you look at our data, it's really for the past 10 years. Head count by gender. So there's a couple of factors that we should be paying attention to. Part of the information is you're seeing the declines based on the ethnic backgrounds of the students that we serve in the college, particularly here in California. If you are a person of color in California, you're part of the majority. So to see declines in enrollment with students of color is significant. And now it also impacts gender. Female head count dropped most from fall 2020 to fall 2021 by 18%. Compared to males at 8%. That's significant because on a demographic level, there are more females born than males. And you will always see more females graduating from college. So when the female enrollment dropped, and we can speculate about why, maybe it's the pandemic and having children in the house and needing to educate their children while maintaining a house could have been significant. That may be the cause, it's pure speculation, but it definitely impacted female students. The largest decrease of male students occurred between fall 2019 and fall 2020 at 14% compared to females at 9%. All right, head count by ethnicity. This is still specific to Laney. From fall 2016 to fall 2021, Laney's headcount decreased by 2,771 students. The groups with the largest headcount decreases from fall 2016 to fall 2021 are Asians, accounting for 40% of the overall decrease, and African Americans with 897 accounting for 30% of the overall decrease. Now, part of our challenge with our API community is that we hit some national news. We had a faculty member here, actually it was international news because the furthest it traveled was to London, England, who made some disparaging comments about the pronunciation of a student's name. And we believe that also impacted the decrease of enrollment of our API community. The groups with the largest percentage decrease from fall 2016 to fall 2021 are American Indians at 38%, African American by 28%, and then we have some unknown factors too by 28%. These are significant. We put our books here. You see that these are students of color. All right. And a number of enrolled in college by school and attendance status. The rate of enrollment decline at the two-year colleges include the most full-time students, which is also significant because when you look at our student-centered funding formula, most of our students who will attend the community college are half-time students. So when we look at FTS and the count and how we bring in our money, to see that more students who are decreasing in their enrollment are full-time students is significant.
Mildred, really quick, Can you make me host so that I can in the settings I can mute the people automatically, and then when they come in I can, because the sound it's from the comments we're getting, it's distracting a lot of folks.
Okay, yes.
And if you can make me a host, and then I can set in the settings, set that up, please. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no worries. I thought you were co-host. Your co-host, is that not working? Or
No, it's not allowing me. So I need to be the host, and then we'll make you co-host as well.
Okay, I just changed you to host. Is that helpful?
Let me get that in there.
Okay.
Right here.
And scholars, just know that if there's questions or pieces that I missed during the presentation or that you missed because of noise level, let me know and I can go back over them. So from 1955 to 2020, national pattern of enrollment decline is significant as well. So part of what's really important when especially when I stop the screen share and we have a discussion about this, is making sure that we're looking at all of the information, because there's so much discussion about the enrollment decline, but we're not looking at all of the data. Part of this, outside of the pandemic, some of this could have been anticipated. There were fewer babies being born. We're going to have—
I know, yeah,
Excuse.
but I'm pretty sure
Excuse
it's
me,
still nice.
Can we please mute? Can we please mute when we come in?
California alone, and this is from Cal Matters, which is part of the policy wing in California. Throughout the state of California, they anticipate on a K-12 level about 600,000 students, fewer students that we can anticipate being able to recruit into the California community colleges. So this piece about enrollment declines, we could expect to continue to have this conversation, as well as we need to be able to identify why are students not enrolling. And I have some ideas that I think would help you take back to your colleges to begin to have those conversations, whether you are an administrator or a classified employee. And it doesn't matter what your position is, you all have agency and you all have power. All right, so these are abbreviated topics for discussion and consideration. The contagion, and Harvard was the only place that I know that was calling COVID-19 or the pandemic a contagion. So the contagion, COVID-19, was a catalyst that triggered multiple enrollment phenomena for the community college. Our approach must be collaborative, comprehensive, as we calibrate to meet the new student demands. And here are some ideas for discussion and consideration. Create a hybrid community college to expand, and this is specific to Laney, to expand Laney College's footprint statewide and nationally, increasing enrollment in the college's SCIF. So let me throw out a piece here. If we were to expand on a national level, there are some pieces on federal law that we'd have to look into. I don't know what all those pieces look like, but it was something that was brought to my attention that we would need to consider. Even related to the hybrid is that how you go about offering that, there's definitely would be some in-person classes as well as some that are remote. Now, let me just throw this caveat out there. In our district, not just at Laney, but our district is comprised of Berkeley City College, Laney College, Merritt College, and College of Alameda. The goal was to get, for this spring, 50% of our classes in person district-wide. And students were not enrolling in those classes because that was not their demand. So a lot of those 50% of those classes, they had to take and make them remote so that they could fill, because the fill rate was low. So they had to cancel them and or move them online. Part of the piece that we could consider is not all districts offer remote classes in the same modality. So the piece of the remote is typically it's either synchronous or asynchronous, and very rarely both. So a lot of our students, particularly at Laney, do not do well in the online environment. That's because we're providing it asynchronous. And let me explain what that means just in case you don't know. Asynchronous is like you go into Canvas, and all of your contact is through Canvas, your communication, everything you're typing, so it can feel self-directed. right? You might have videos that you can watch if the professor records videos, but all of your material for the class is all, it's all sort of distant because it's all in the Canvas module. The piece with asynchronous is that's where you get a Zoom link and you meet with your class either for the whole period or an abbreviated part of the period. So a combination of both of those can be really rich, because if you do asynchronous, you can offer where students do most of that on their own and maybe even reduce your in-person classes to 90 minutes. So just once a week, 90 minutes in Zoom, and then any questions that you have to unpack about the content, you have that, as well as you can build community in that space. So let me give a little bit more background why I'm even suggesting that, especially as the Dean of Enrollment Services, because I also teach. I teach at Mills College. I teach in the doctoral program and in the master's program. And a part of that teaching is I was invited to teach for the online program where it's synchronous and asynchronous. And so it's far more engaged when you're meeting with those students for 90 minutes, because anything that they're getting in Canvas that they didn't understand, you're able to catch there and build community in that space. So part of the sharing that I'm doing is not just from the perspective of being an administrator as the Dean of Enrollment Services, but I'm also adjunct faculty in a doctoral program. And so I have some experience with this online modalities. Another suggestion was, can policy be reviewed and improved to charge in-state tuition for out-of-state students, giving the community college a competitive edge? Before our current chancellor, I didn't think that the work that we're doing now was even possible. But there was two people that really changed my life as far as thinking out of the box. It definitely Eloy, and I would also say President Obama, simply because as a Black woman, I did not in my lifetime before he became president think that that was possible, not in my lifetime. So those two things were major catalysts in my life for me to be able to think out of the box. So this piece where can policy be reviewed and changed? Prior to that, I would think, no, things are so fixed. Around policy, if it's the policy, it won't change, but I don't think that anymore. And this could be reviewed. And this is the piece, I believe, where we would have to look into the federal legislation to see how to navigate that. Create instructional online orientation to align with student services onboarding. So, for example, and again, this is coming from my experience of having taught teaching online at Mills. Before students ever come into my class, they know the protocols, they know about the cameras and the muting and how to engage, because through Noodle, they created an online instructional orientation. So it makes the sort of pathway into the classes so much easier. Improve our online presence to create a sense of belonging and inclusivity. That can be done through our websites and our marketing, and making sure that our marketing is culturally sensitive and thoughtful and inclusive, and that it reflects and looks like the students who are coming to our colleges. Create competitive, distinguished institutional programs to attract students. And when I say that, I mean that's across the board. It's not just about focusing on any one part of the college. Abbreviated topics for discussion and consideration. Create more opportunities to provide digital literacy. Now this piece is really important because Laney is at the foot of Chinatown, and we have a lot of disadvantaged students who come. We have ESOL students, and I work, my office is within the Welcome Center. So we'll have students who come in who've experienced domestic violence. So a part of getting CC apply, they have to have an email account, and they don't. So, and I know this is work we all know about, you all do on a day-to-day basis. And with that said, with them not having these basic pieces, is that the ability to do well in a hybrid campus, or even when it was remote, really depended on their digital literacy. So when I walk out of my office and I'm doing things and I'll see a student in here for 2 hours, that's a student that requires high touch. And a lot of it's because they don't have the digital literacy. So we began having these discussions at the college through my vice president and with the student services team. And that is, how do we integrate with instruction and student services to begin to offer maybe some 2-week quick courses on campus in person, and where we can teach and have, like, those one-page informationals with widgets, because no one likes to read. It's not that people don't like to read because there's so much information to take in these days, but how to do quick 2-hour trainings with the widgets, really quick instructions as well for them to refer back to so that they can navigate. So the digital literacy piece would be really important in a hybrid environment, bringing them in, helping them, and then having points throughout the semester if they needed to continue to come in. And then if they do gain a certain fluency, what can we offer online? Provide pop-up recruitment events in the community, design market short-term courses for entrepreneurs, creatives, and influencers. This comes from some colleagues at OUSD, and where, quite frankly, they're like, look, our students want to be creatives and influencers. What type of curriculum are you offering for that short term? And I'll give you an example. One of the folks I mentioned, Dr. David Lee, he is the APAS director in the division. And so he was really interested in Google IT certificates. Now he's on the student services side, obviously, but he was interested. So he registered through Coursera, $39, pay attention, $39 to study in within a few weeks. But when I say a few weeks, maybe like 2 months or less. Did all the pieces for the Google IT certificate, and then he was being headhunted afterwards. So part of what he did is he's like, okay, there's clearly a demand for this. He wanted to bring it to the campus, but anything that's on the instructional side, the faculty own, so that they make those decisions and determinations. But the goal was, because part of his APAS grant is a CTE grant, is how to help students come and get through the community college faster. And was that something that our college could adopt, and then help move students through faster? Now, Google IT is working with community colleges, but it looks like, even when they're working with the community colleges, that the length of time to matriculate through that is longer if instead of them going to Coursera. So these are things for us to think about, is how do we deliver to our younger demographic tools and opportunities to do short-term courses faster so that they can get into the field and begin working. Not everyone is interested in a 4-year degree. Consider strategic enrollment management for changing K-12 student demand, opting out of high school for independent study. So part of the vaccination policy is there's a lot of people of color that are not interested and don't believe in being vaccinated for a variety of reasons around trust. Right. And a lot of that is just historical, right? Those are historical realities. And so if they're required to be vaccinating, they're going for independent study. So that sort of affects how we see students, and we recruit and we outreach to them as well. Consider recent loss, and this is specific to my area in Northern California. Consider recent loss of 20K students in Hayward Unified School District. There was pending 8 school closures. And how does this impact Laney? Right? So enrollment keeps going down, but we got to look at the data, what's happening around us. Design institutional strategies to recruit students who do not want to adhere to district vaccine policies, right? So part of our district was saying you have to be vaccinated. Well, what if they choose not to be vaccinated? Does that mean they can't be a student here anymore? If that's the case, what does that mean for our business? How are we looking at the vaccination policies? So if they choose not to be vaccinated, do we offer for them only remote services? And will that change if in the future if they choose not to be vaccinated? These are important conversations for consideration. Professional development to adapt to a student-centered hybrid campus with best practices as well. And the reason why I said, abbreviated topics for discussion and consideration is because, we are in uncharted territory. So, being out there in front and innovating and creating and not being rigid to say it can only be this way. No, but these are things that we should be discussing, we should be looking for, as well as additional information. These are some of the resources that I have, and you can look them up because you'll have this PowerPoint. The first one being the article, Creating a Post-COVID Business Plan. Let me share, I know in education, a lot of times we believe we're not a business. It depends on how you define that. I've heard people joke and say, well, you're getting a paycheck and conversations around FICA, things like that, you're paying taxes. We're a business in a different kind of way, not necessarily for profit, but in fact, we are a business. And it's maybe our business model that we need to be considering. And our business model is how we deliver education. Part of our challenges is we keep thinking that education doesn't need to change. We have a whole new population of students who may demand that we change, or maybe we won't be as seen as the same type of pillar in society that we always have been. And it's really important that we take a look at that, and it's okay. I mean, we don't necessarily lose, it doesn't need to be a power struggle about that. But that's food for thought. I'm going to stop share now so that we can open up dialogue. We have a little bit time left, and we can I can answer some questions and maybe share some more information about this process. I did this presentation. Our district chancellor has it. All of the college presidents have it. I did this presentation at a retreat, a manager's retreat, just for the college in December. But prior to that, and this is the piece around being bold regardless of position that you're in, I was excited after doing that training. And so I came back to the college and I was talking to the VPs. My current VP wasn't here at the time. And it didn't feel like it was taking traction. Like, people heard me out, but they didn't do anything with it. I could have just sat back and go, okay, whatever, they're not moving on it. But instead, I put a presentation together and I delivered it there. I also delivered it to the faculty, to the department chairs. I shared it with the state chancellor's office, with a board of governor, and obviously now at this conference. And really, I want to acknowledge Cynthia Alvarado. I work with her. She's a wonderful, skilled colleague. She's our CalWorks coordinator. And she said, hey, boss, why don't you do this presentation at the conference? And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So, really encouraging all of you as you see enrollment challenges, right? Because it's not just the college, it's your categorical programs as well. It's affecting everything. So we got to think about our work differently, and it doesn't have to come top down. We all have agency, we all have power. And so what you do is you get teams together and you start discussing it, you start pulling data in, like, where are the resources in the articles? Because when I hear people say, well, if you simply open up the doors and we go back to the way things were, that students are going to come back. And it's like, but you got to look at the data. Where's the data for that? Right? There's no, that's like pulling something from the blue sky. Like, if I'm suggesting this, I'm citing my sources for where I'm standing up at, right? And I also want to say it's so important that we are not afraid. And like, I'm the dean of enrollment, so I'm on strategic enrollment management. I hear faculty, I hear all these folks talk, and I'm like, okay, I hear you. Cite your source. Tell me, if you have that belief, where is that belief coming from, right? Because if I'm presenting to you that Harvard is saying, and based on an article, that psychologically people have changed. We've not even talked about the economy and how much food costs and what our students now need to do to survive. Have our students moved out of California? Are they in other states? Where are they at? What do they need, and how do we need to deliver it to them? These are the questions we need to ask, and we can do that through surveys. Right? So part of it is we got to get other information, and we need to even ask ourselves, what information do we need to get? Who can we get it from? Can the school give it all to us, or do we need to start being more industrious and enterprising and entrepreneurial about how we're getting our information? Do not be afraid to do surveys. And remember, surveys are good, but they're not going to give you everything on an entrepreneurial level. You really want to be entrepreneurial. You need to, I would humbly suggest, do focus groups. Now, you don't do the focus groups yourself. You would have somebody else do the focus groups, because you're going to get just-in-time information. And I would suggest you do several focus groups. So some of those who are current students, prospective students, maybe they're in high school. And then if you work with a large ESOL population, which a lot of us do, where are those community-based organizations for the ESOL populations? You want various groups. You want younger people, but you also want some of the older people. You want the ESOL, the new immigrants. What are their demands and needs of the community college, and delivering what they need That's our consumer, that's our customer, that's how we're going to survive. And what I'm suggesting is they're at a particular place where we have a need and we can no longer meet their need as we transition out of this pandemic. Because if that was the case, we had more people in the stress of the pandemic in fall 2020 that were enrolled in community college than we did a year later in fall 2021. Right? And let's think about it. The vaccines had already started rolling out. In fall 2021, that had already happened in the spring. We were opening up. You can get outside a little bit more. And enrollment had still declined in most community colleges in California. And even on the national scene. I mean, on a national scene, and I see 2 hands raised, I'm going to get there. On a national scene, you have 4-year colleges in Florida discussing that their way for keeping their students is retention. Well, a lot of us CalWORKs categorical programs. I came up in a categorical program. I got lots of categorical programs. Like retention was always part of our work, right? So when I hear that, it's like, yeah, that's good, but that's always been a part of our work, right? And it doesn't really fully address the larger issue that there's a demographic shift, there's smaller demographics. We need to have these conversations. The paradigm pushed us over the edge, but we were headed there anyway. And I think if we talk about it, how many of us at our colleges in leadership were actually ever talking about the impending demographic shifts and that there were going to be fewer students to choose from? The reality of it is that we're either stagnant in California or we're having declines in areas as far as our demographics are concerned. Anyway, let me just sort of put a comma there. I'm sure I have more to share. But I see Maddie, she has her hand up for a question or comment.
First and foremost, Mildred, wow, thank you so much. If everyone give her a round of applause, this was a great presentation. I did notice you said what would caught my attention because I'm in Barstow, California, which is a very small rural desert community in San Bernardino County. And what affects us most, and what our curriculum committee is working on, is changing some of either getting rid of or redesigning a lot of our degrees because this pandemic changed the game totally, as you said. So what caught my attention was your curriculum or whatever committee is on your campus was redesigning short-term certificates, like ones for creatives, entrepreneurs, and I believe you said influencers. That was through Google.
So that was a suggestion. They're not actually doing it, but it was something that I brought to the college based on conversations I was having with OUSD and leaders there about what their students wanted. So that's not actually happening, but I was just sort of throwing out possibilities out there for others to get excited about and figure out where they wanted to go. The piece, Maddie, say more about the Google piece so I can share.
I didn't catch the full name of it. It was through Google.
So it's Google IT certificates, and they're through Coursera. They're working with I think it's the Contra Costa Community Colleges. I think with Los Pasitos, they do some work there. Google does some work there. So you can bring them to the community college, but it's got to go through faculty, right? And so, the goal is hopefully you're dealing with faculty who are entrepreneurial and enterprising, where it doesn't become a 2-year program, right? Because if Coursera is going to offer it to students and they can get that done in 6 weeks, 8 weeks for $39, right? So even if they can come to the community college for free, our piece for 1 unit is $46, right? If you don't get the CCPG, and for us old timers like myself, the bulk fee waiver, right? So it's, how do we stay competitive to meet their needs so they come through us? We got to get out of the box.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Claudia.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Everything you talked about, seriously, I had a conversation to myself last week about all of this. My biggest question is, how do we get buy-in? And so one thing you mentioned was in-state tuition for out-of-state students. I know a lot of campuses like those out-of-state tuition because it brings more funding more funding to the school. So how are we to bring this to the table when we're having discussions about budgets?
Okay, so one, you need data. have them run the data about for out of state and for internationals, how much money is that really bringing, right? And then you can do a simulation. If you remove that, how much money through a simulation, and that's where the researchers come in, could you possibly garner if you market it, right? So sometimes there's a fallacy in thinking that it's more money, but then when you look at the budget, it's really a small portion of the budget. And that by maybe being more innovative and expanding it and running a simulation, you will find that you can gain more money to participate at your college for students to be able to come. So there was something else I wanted to say, it'll come back to me, but that piece for starters. Oh, you wanted to know about buy-in. Oh yeah, okay. Have you ever been in a relationship?
Yes.
You know, wanted to say to your lovely, you know, I want a new bathroom. Your lovely doesn't want the bathroom, but you make the lovely believe it's their idea. That's one way for beginners. Oh, I'm being coy, but I'm serious. You do it too by bringing people in and letting them co-create it together, right? It's when we co-create together that we get the buy-in. So you can bring ideas and say, I have these ideas. What are your ideas? What are your concerns? What are your fears? Like when we do it that way, right? So by the time when I'm moving as a dean, I have the respect of my team, my directors. I have 3 directors and my classified staff because I work with them collectively. I don't even look at the classified staff and say, oh, well, they're classified. No, like I need to get something done. Who keeps your college running? Your classified staff are there 12 months out of the year. Pay attention, and they're brilliant and they know all kinds of things and they know where stuff is buried and they will save you every time. So I co-create with them. When we went online in the pandemic, my team killed it. I mean, killed it. But it's because we came together like pre-pandemic, but even more in the pandemic. So I would say really bringing people together, they have to feel like they're a part of it. They have to be seen and heard. And when they are, and for those who are not as interested, then you have to, it's about building the relationship, right? So I was coy in the beginning around, making your lovely think that the bathroom that you have is their idea. But, there's some of that involved in relationship building, and that's okay. Just knowing that, when I was classified before I went to work on my doctorate, I had this attitude. So I'm not political. I'm not political. Well, I laughed later. I didn't realize what I was really saying is that I'm not with those politics. So let me explain what politics are. Simply relationships. We choose what relationships we have, and those are politics. So even if you are only dealing with people on an equity level, well, that's still politics because those are your relationships. That's what you care about. So it's really about saying, okay, you're different from me. I don't necessarily agree with some of the ways you navigate, but I need to partner with you. Let me figure out where we have commonality. How about that commonality is we want to have a job. Yes, I said that. You want a job? You like what you do? You figure out where that commonality is and then you build from there. There was a piece that I wanted to mention. It has something to do with equity. It'll probably come back up. So Hector, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question, or more, I don't know if it's a question or more of a comment. You mentioned a little bit about that we work for business, that the college is a business. And I think we are in the business of helping people, yes. But I don't know that we necessarily work for a business, because if the college ran like a business, they won't be teaching the same curriculum with the same lens all these years and not connecting to our students. I've seen statistics of some of our classes where they have 14% of the students pass their class. If that was a business, they would have gone under. So I think that if we're going to move the equity needle, we need to run our institutions like a business and hire folks that could connect with their students, like we have in special programs and student services. You look at the folks on the screen, they represent the population that we serve. Look at the teaching faculty, it doesn't reflect, and the lens doesn't reflect the people that we serve. So I just want to make that comment because you did touch a little bit upon, if it was a business, if we ran like a business. Thank you.
Hector, let me say, Ashe, I agree. And I think your comments are brilliant. Thank you for saying that, because you're right. Anyone else that you would just like to have a discussion or share, like how would you navigate? Because, let's see. Okay, like Hector, you got a legacy hand up. Your legacy hand up from the question?
Yeah,
Or is that another question?
Yeah, he just had it up.
Okay.
Come on, Hector, make it happen, senor.
Okay,
Sorry.
let's see. And I wrote down, why does this matter? Relevance, higher education staying relevant. Hector mentioned the piece around education connecting. Yes. So when we're learning to write, what are we learning to write for? How does that help us in our jobs, right? Math. When I was at Mills working on my doctorate, I remember there was one class that had master's and doctoral students, and there was this one API assistant, and she said something that I never forgot. We were in one of the seminal classes together, and she said something came up around math, and she said, the Asian way or the American way? And I said, oh, snap. That's like, because it's about knowledge and epistemology. We don't all know or learn things the same way, right? And so what's important about the piece that Hector mentioned as far as business and what I'm talking about as far as being relevant is that really making sure that we're teaching information in a way that's relevant, that students can feel like they can use it when they're here, that they can get excited about their classes. Is class and is coming to college fun? And it can be. It's not just about getting a job. It needs to be fun while they're here. So we have to ask ourselves as an institution, higher ed, is how are we being relevant to students, to our consumer? So that's one of the reasons why all this matters when we see declining enrollment. Categorical programs, I mentioned this before, our enrollment is declining too. A lot of our money is through unduplicated headcount. And while we've had some protections during the pandemic, what will happen if we don't see the college enrollment and then categorical enrollment increase? And the types of declines in categorical programs are stark. Meeting the demand of students in relationship to their generation, their demographic, and their need to be employed. Like that's why this is why this matters. And I don't care what position you have at your college. Your voice matters. You can get together. You'll have this PowerPoint. You can look at that to help guide you to get data just for your college, working with your college researcher, also by pulling articles. And while I don't have it in there, yes, surveys, you can do your own surveys. You don't have to wait for the researcher. You can team up in student services and do surveys around student demand and need and how they need, and outside of the instructional part, right? Just how would they like to connect with student services or your categorical program? And then of course the focus groups, because the focus groups, they're smaller. They're like, I think 9 to 12 students. You have someone ask them questions and record it. And then what you do is you get several different feedback. And that means, like I said, ESOL, immigrant communities, older communities, high school, and as well as your current students. Figure out what they really want today, not what they wanted yesterday, what they need today, and the why. And the why. The why will drive us. Any more questions or comments?
I don't see any in the chat. Just
Oh,
see a lot of great comments and positive messages, sharing with the presentation. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. This is Sandra with Sierra College, and just kind of, echoing and, what's shared, and the sense that the California community colleges, I think historically haven't really been seen as a business. I know I've had this conversation over the last, easily 8 years with colleagues, that it is a business, that we do have an obligation to our students to deliver on a product that is excellent. And if we're falling short, we need to reevaluate, reassess, and improve, revamp what we're doing and how we're doing it. We do have that onus on us, and but I think it's just, it hasn't historically over the decades been seen as that. So it's a real change in perception of the community college system. You know, I mean, up until maybe even 20 years ago, it's really been seen as a place for students to kind of just find themselves, right? Just let me just discover what I want to do with my life. And, you know, since I'm not really sure what I want to do, I'll just go here for a little while and figure it out. And so I think because it's been more of a place of discovery and sort of, I don't know, just, you know, casual, you know, hanging out, not real, not with the real sense of goal orientation. You know, it just had like, the community colleges have had a different sort of perception in the eyes of the students, of their parents, of the high school, even the high school counselors and teachers, you know, and how they encourage or don't encourage students to go to community college. And so I think it's been a heavy lift to kind of change that perception to, you know what, the community college system can be your first choice. It can be, you know, the best choice for you right now as you are embarking on your future career and learning, you know, what that's gonna look like. And that, you know, the people here at the community college system, within each community college that you're thinking of going to, our staff, our managers, our faculty, our counselors, like they all care that you succeed. We all care. It matters to us that you get in and get out and get on with the next step in your journey. You want to move on to a 4-year, if you want to get gainful employment in the field that you are interested in, it matters to us that you get there, and we're going to help you get there. And we believe that it's our responsibility to help you get there. You know, just kind of like changing that whole mindset that we're in this together, and it's important to us as it is to you, you know, the student. And I think that we've made a lot of you know, positive strides in that direction, like over the last maybe 10 years. But you know, it's not something that changes overnight, because it is so socially and culturally embedded.
Yeah, so thank you for your comments. And I would say yes. And at this point, a little dial change, right? Not a little shifting of the dial. And that is for us to acknowledge we no longer know what students want. In education, like to say we don't know something is like taboo. Our power is going to be in admitting that we no longer know and we need to reinvent ourselves to exist. That's where our real power is. And when we act on that, that's going to yield something so powerful if we take that information and then begin to implement it as a collective, right? And that's going to be the other piece, is that the important piece of doing that collectively when we may not all see things the same way.
I think that's a good point. You know, being able to acknowledge that we don't necessarily know, and it's okay even if the students don't necessarily know exactly, but the fact that we are having the dialogue, the conversations, the focus groups where we can collaborate together on determining what that is and then meeting that need.
Yeah, thank you. Francisco, were there questions in there that I may not have caught?
There's one by Nadia. Are there any efforts or plans to hire a research firm to study this topic and hopefully assist with the analysis, especially the data piece?
Yeah, not that I know of. I think the what the college researcher, ask certain questions and see what they can provide you. So some of this information that I got, I worked with a researcher in our district who gave me the census data. I just said what I wanted and I got that. I got some of the things I didn't want. I said, this is not going to help me with my presentation, right? So you have to look at all the data. And then of course, articles. And I think, because I'm on the strategic enrollment management committee at our campus, is that some of the information we need to know, like what's happening in the economy right now, where are people going right now? Not something, we don't need information like 5-10 years later. We get old information. We need like just in time information. So, asking our researchers to get us that if they don't know, like being willing to look up things like housing market information. Interesting enough, like big business, they look at things differently. They'll tell you about, like if you look at, Google something around apartment, multifamily housing buildings in a certain area. They're going to project, because they've already projected like where there'll be more, where the demographic increase, right? What's going to be the median income? They're going to give you certain information that you still maybe won't get from your college researcher. So not being afraid to say, I need this kind of information. Where could I get it from? Working together with teams of people. And, I work with a lot of smart people in my division, and they will Google something in a minute. So really getting out of the box with that. So, maybe the institution may not be there yet to hire in someone to do this work, because they may not be thinking like that. You may be with a few people at your college, the ones who are thinking of it. So get out the box. Don't be afraid. That's my words of encouragement if they don't have it for you there. Let's see, I see 2 more comments.
Just it presents a collective effort to find answers together, actions to include both support staff and students.
Yeah. Yeah. Ashe. So I hope this presentation was valuable. It's 3:18. We have a few more minutes, so I'll definitely stay behind to respond. Oh, I see. Okay, Bill.
Hi.
Hi, Bill.
I'm Bill Rapola. I'm the account clerk senior for Coward here at Grossman College in El Cajon. Great presentation, by the way. I always feel like the college has all the wonderful plans to help a student succeed. But the hardest part for in a student's journey is that first step, walking to an office and seeing that first smile, that welcome. And things I've seen where students have said, "Oh, grab a seat, I'll be able to help you. Oh yeah, here's a few applications to fill out." Blah, 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 and it goes on, and they're already scared because they have so many negativity prior to coming to the office. I'm not saying all, of course, never all, but a simple hello, how are you? Can I get you a glass of water? Something just to get them comfortable, because it may take 2 or 3, 4 trips for some people like myself. It took me like 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 4 trips before I probably finished college. But there's a wonderful quote that I wish it was mine, but it's not. But I'm sure you heard about this. It says, people don't care how much you know. They only want to know how much you care. Once they know how much you care, then they want to know how much you know. But the caring is the most important part. And that smile goes a long way. And I've seen it where people are busy and understand it, but they'll say, "Oh, grab a seat, I'll be happy. I'll get to you as soon as possible." And it's like an assembly line. I got to get you through it right away. But that first hello, I've done it to the point where sometimes when students get there early in the morning before 8 o'clock and it's cold outside, and I would say, "Hello, you guys have an appointment?" They said 8 o'clock. And I said, "Okay, I make a deal with you. You come into the office, you sit quietly and stay warm, get you some coffee if you wish, but you can't ask me any questions until 8:10. And they said, "Why 8:10? I thought you guys open at 8. Well, we do, but it takes me 10 minutes to kind of get my marbles together." And I made them laugh. So I was able to help them, but I made them laugh to the point where they always remember me because I got them to smile. And even if I don't know the answers to their questions, I know somebody who knows somebody who can help this person. And they sometimes, when I tell them that I cannot, I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but I know someone who can help you, they still smiled because I didn't say, well, I don't know, I can help you. And then they leave empty-handed. So the effort of caring is what will get them to start their journey. There's that trust with someone's going to be there to help. But when you start saying, oh, you got to do this, and do this, they're already afraid to pursue it because they don't think they can do it. So I think a smile, a handshake, what's your name, is a good start. If we can just practice that, I think no matter what it is, we can get them involved. But it has to be their speed, their time. But the first smile is the most important one. That's all.
Yeah, Bill, that's the affective domain, right? And so that's the most important piece. They get to the cognitive stuff after we get to the affective, and the affective is the relationship. And just heads up, scholars, the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education, one of the things they talk about related to student learning outcomes, it's the affective domain. How do you feel? It's the relationship piece. Right. And even when we learn how to deliver education to them the way they want in this environment where we are the students, it's still because it's the affective domain. It's the smile and figuring out what do they want and how do they want it. Right. So, yeah, the relationship piece that you're talking about, Bill, is powerful. Thank you. So we're 3:23, so I'm going to go ahead and transition this. I want to thank you all for coming today. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to be with you today. And I'll stay back for a couple of minutes. And I also just want to, she's probably not here, but thank Laney College's CalWorks coordinator, Cynthia Alvarado, who recommended that I do this presentation. And she even submitted it for me. She's amazing. I work with amazing people. So thank you so much. Enjoy the conference and be well.
Great job, Dean Lewis.
Hey, Muddy. Thank you.
One of the best presentations today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, Raymond.
I'm telling you, we had some good, the presentations, the presenters, and we were pretty thorough, I think. And we used a lot of the, like you mentioned, the surveys that they did last year, some of the things that they were looking for, and then tie it into some of the stuff that tie it into the theme of you step into your power and things like, it's kind of from hearing people and conversations and talking to them, they like the percentage so far has been pretty good. So now with the surveys, hopefully we'll use the surveys again for next year. Whomever's running the show next year can help us, can help us make it happen. Who knows? Maybe we'll throw Dr. Lewis in there too, and make her and Cynthia run the show next year. What do you say?
Yeah, why not? I'd be happy to.
Let me tell you, that name Mildred is beautiful. My second oldest sister is Mildred. So when I saw your name, I'm like, man, that name is beautiful. I don't hear it very often.
Yeah, that's old people's name these days.
I love that name. I told my sister, I'm like, man, I envy your name. I told my wife, I'm like, hey, Mildred, and she's like, well, you got your sister Mildred. You can't have another tostado around. So yeah. But I love that name. You're probably the second or third person. I really don't hear it a lot. It's just the way it sounds. When I say it in Spanish, I'm like, hey, Mildred or Mildred. It's like, wow. It's like, I don't know. I like it. I like
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you.
I think he's souping you up to try to get you to commit. Because that's how they got him last year. He was laughing and joking, and the next thing he know, he had us in it. So
come on, Ray.
Be careful.
Okay, Raymond.
I think he's trying to get you in there. He said, oh yeah, you wonderful. Come on in.
Yeah.
That's how they got him last year. Last year he was laughing and joking. Next thing you know, after it was over, he was the one that was supposed to be hosting.
Yeah.
My soon-to-be 20-year-old calls it, but she would call it gas you up. She goes, yeah, Mom, get gassed up.
And then you go in there and say, yes, I do it. And he got you recorded saying, yeah, I do it. I can do it.
Oh, we didn't stop the recording.
Yeah.
Because it's It's called what my soon to be 20-year-old would say, talk to me nicely.
There you go. He was talking nice. He was talking nice.
I'm using the skills, Ray.